everyone. Welcome to the Tech and Real Estate live stream. Today, our focus is creative finance. And if this is your first time here, what we talk about is real estate, technology, and how to get into the data. So I am going to quickly cover what our first steps are going to be. And we have Rex here. Hey, Rex.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great.
Can you can you hear me there okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Perfect.
So while I pull up the agenda, if you want to drop in where you're coming in from, you could leave that in the comments. So I'm going to share my screen here. So today I'm going to quickly go over the agenda, what's going on in my world, live deal analysis with Rex, Q&A, and what's coming. So actually, I think the order is out here. There we go. Cool. So in my world, focused on data right now with interest rate drops that just happened yesterday. We see a lot of deals that are actually unlocking, so becoming cash flow positive. We'll have more information as that comes. Did have a big announcement this week of my new book, Data Driven Investors Guide. So really how to find markets, how to find neighborhoods, how to analyze deals beyond just the numbers. So no fluff and all action. Also, this weekend, I'll be traveling back to my original home state, New Jersey, quickly to see some friends that I haven't seen in a while for an event. And with that, what you're all here for, the main event, which is with Rex, who we have here. Thanks, Rex, for joining. And we're going to go over creative deal analysis. So Rex has closed on creative deals in the past before. So we'll be able to actually go through those numbers, ask questions, and you could also follow Rex at the Rex Shippy on YouTube as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing here. And before we get into the numbers, Rex, would love to hear a little bit about your background, where you're from and what got you into real estate.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here, Ariel. This is awesome. I am born and raised in Idaho. I have lived here my whole life. Idaho native, which you don't see a lot of those anymore, it don't seem like. But that's good. We like it. We like the growth that is provided here. So it's been amazing. So my background, I've been self-employed my whole life. Well, ever since I turned 18. I've never held a traditional W-2 job. So been self-employed. And then really what got me into real estate was 3 years ago. I read a book and it made me realize that struggling with money is a decision. It's a choice, and from then I really just started learning about real estate and digging into real estate and seeing what that actually was, because I didn't know anything about real estate. And then I discovered creative financing, and that has opened up literally a whole new world for me. And that is how I built my entire business, is off of creative financing.
Excellent. Love to hear it. Love to also hear that you're a native for Idaho. Like throughout the whole country, you don't really find too many natives anywhere as much anymore. And I see we have folks from all over. So, hey, Mark from Hawaii, Charleston, South Carolina. See Nima is calling in. Thomas from California, Sacramento. Christina from Virginia. And also, I will drop some links, including the book that I mentioned and Rex's channel. But Rex, for those who may be really new to creative finance, it may seem like a crazy idea of how you can be able to acquire property without needing a bank. So could you just briefly explain what that concept is and how creative finance could be applied?
Yeah, so creative finance, there's multiple different avenues of creative finance. So there is seller finance, when a seller of a property or a pickup or a phone or whatever will finance it to you. You can make the payments to the seller and then buy it that way. Basically, the seller becomes the bank. There is a subject to, which is another form of creative finance, which I have utilized quite a bit. And it's really what I built a lot of my business off of, it is just simply taking over payments on an existing mortgage. Mortgage stays in the seller's name, and I take over making the payments for it. So that is really the two forms of creative finance that I have utilized the most. As far as just for a quick overview of what creative financing is.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you for that. And would love to dive into the numbers now. So, would you be able to either share a screen or walk us through how you broken down one of these creative finance deals in the past?
Absolutely. Do we want to do a whiteboard, or do we want to just, this will do it for now. All right, we got a house here. So we got a seller. See if I can make this a little bigger here. That way it's a little bit easier to see here.
Go full screen. I'll see if you can draw.
Yeah, I can still draw. Nope, cannot. All right.
Yeah, it's pretty clear on full screen. You're moving that.
Oh.
I lost my mouse.
All right. Can you guys see that there?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Oh, perfect. Now it actually works. All right. So on this particular house here, so they bought it about 10 months ago. And the interesting thing with this one, of course, we already went over about, it being a low down payment and stuff. So they had, let's see, loan number one. So they actually had two mortgages on this one. Loan number one is $401,000. And then they had loan number two, which was a down payment assistance, actually, which was $27,000. And sometimes these down payments on them, and sometimes they're no payments. The down payment assistance loans, there's no payments and no interest. This one, there is actually a monthly payment and interest on both of these loans. So we'll just say the seller's name here is John. They bought this house 10 months ago, lived in it, their family is in it. They now needed to relocate 30 minutes back over here. Let's draw another house here. And so they needed to relocate back over here. But the problem was they bought this, and by the time you buy a house and then you go to resell it again, market has shifted a bit. And so they decided they need to sell this because they needed to move back over here. So what do they do like most people? They go and hire an agent. So John goes and gets a hold of an agent and says, hey, agent, I need to sell my house here because I now got to move over to the next town beside me, so about 30 minutes away. I need to sell my house, and I need to buy this house over here. So he goes and calls the agent, gets the agent to list his house. An agent is going to charge normally around 6% for buyer and seller commissions. So now they go and John says, okay, yeah, we're selling this house. So we're actually going to go sign contract on a new house, a brand new house. So he signs contract on a brand new house. His house over here is not selling. This is the house here that he still lives in. His family still lives in. This house, ARV on this house is And if people don't know what ARV is, feel free to ask that in the comments. ARV is after repair value. So this house really didn't need any repairs. It's literally, it's a 2019 build, so it's a really nice house. But ARV on this one is about 450. You guys can see that. Tell me if you can see that okay. There still. You still see that okay there, Ariel?
Yep.
Perfect. So ARV is about 450. So altogether, they have 428,000 is what they owe on this property. They need to list it at they really need to list it above 450 in order to pay the agents their commission. Because John went and hired an agent to then sell his house, which is normally what you do if you want to get the best price out of it in the traditional sale. In the meantime, John signed contract on a new house. This house isn't selling here because it's just, the market slowed down. Just across the road about a mile over in here, well, probably more about like here, there's builders building houses and they're buying down the rates. They're buying down they're giving all these incentives because these are brand new houses that are going in and the builders want to just keep moving them. So John is not able to sell his house for the 450. So they have to drop price a little bit. Now that they're dropping price, agent says, you know, okay, I can go down on my commission because we really just need this gone down here. So agent then starts to drop his commission because agent is going to make a commission on this house and then also represent the buyer on their new house over here. So, and the agent also wants to provide a service for their clients, for his clients. And he wants to see them be able to move and get into their new place because that's where they need to go. But the struggle is they owe $428,000 on it. That's the struggle there. So there's so many and I want to stop there just a little bit. There's so many of those. I want to say 75%. I heard the number the other day, but like 75% of all the mortgages out there are mortgages that were pulled within the last 4 years. And if someone pulls a mortgage within the last 4 years, kind of like these sellers did, kind of like John did here, he's in a tough situation. There's not a lot of equity there. And in order for them to sell it, they kind of got to write a check just to get rid of it. And John's not really in a place here to write a check to get rid of his house. On the market for a while. And then over here, let's see if I can make that a little bigger there. Over here, we got a wholesaler. And everybody probably knows what a wholesaler is, but if you don't, ask Phil. Over here, we got a wholesaler that sees this house on the market, and there is softwares out there that you can search and filter out low equity properties. The data is not always correct, but it can help you filter out the properties. So he sees this property listed and it's not selling. They've done a couple price reductions because the agent is now willing to take a little bit less money for commissions and just to make it work and provide a service for his clients. So the wholesaler reaches out to the agent and says, hey, agent, I see that you have this house listed. It's a new house. It looks like it was purchased in the last 10 months. Like, I see that it's not selling yet. Like, what do you think the reason is for not selling? Well, the reason is just simply they don't have enough equity. They can't go down on price. We're just in this tough situation. These tract home builders right across the road are building all of these other houses over here, and they're just not Why would someone come buy a brand new one and get a rate buy down and all the incentives? Because John over here is not in a place to give a rate buy down and give these incentives because he's already in a pinch with the loans that he has on this property. So this wholesaler finds out that this property is a low equity property. This wholesaler then who does he call? He calls me because I am a buyer here in the area. He says, "Hey Rex, I've seen this house and it's low equity. They're in a tough situation. What could you do for numbers on this house?" By this time, he already knows what the loans are. He knows he already has a mortgage picture of the mortgage statement. He says, this house, they have $401,000 on the first position loan, and they have $27,000 on the second position loan. Their interest rate, I believe, on this one is I want to say a 6.2. So a little bit higher interest rate, not necessarily the best, but a little bit higher interest rate. What could you do for numbers? So I take a look at it. It's right here, like in my backyard. So I tell the wholesaler, this is what I can do. Because the wholesaler wants to make money here too. So I say, hey, I want to be all in, closing and everything at $15,000. He's like, all right, I'll see what I can negotiate. So he calls the agent back and says, hey, agent, would you take $5,000? Sellers don't get no money. John over here doesn't get no money because he's in a tough situation. If it had a 3% rate on it, yeah, this would be a little better, but it doesn't. So he's like, hey, if you would take $5,000, I will take $5,000, and I have a buyer who will buy this from me. This wholesaler's not a local person. He's out of Texas. So he's not local. He doesn't know what the market is here. And I'm the buyer here, and I know my numbers here just because I know my market. And so the agent goes and talks to the sellers, and the wholesaler asks the agent, says, hey, what if we just take over their payments? And just take over their payments. They can walk away from the property. They don't have to write a check. They can now go buy their new house over here, and they can be living the life that they need to live. And agent says, he talks to the sellers and said, yeah, I think this is the best option. Otherwise, you guys are not going to sell this house over here. You guys are going to have a really hard time selling this house over here because guess what? You owe about as much on it as it's worth. And by the time you pay all the fees and everything, you're going to be coming out of pocket with money. So the sellers say, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. I'll let you take over my payments. I will let the title transfer to the buyer, and I will leave the loan in place. The loan will be in John's name over here, and then title will transfer ultimately to me, because there is a wholesaler involved. So they make an agreement, sign contract, and here I'm going to buy it. The wholesaler is going to go get it under contract with the agent over here, and then he's going to assign the contract to me up here because I'm the buyer. And deal's going well, but the struggle is, well, they already had a contract signed on their brand new house over here. They already had the builder extend because the contract expired. They had earnest money on this new property. The builder already extended once for them and wouldn't extend again. So the sellers were in a time crunch because they needed to get this one executed on so they didn't lose their earnest money, and they really needed to move over there anyhow. So they are now getting approved for their mortgage over here. So where do you go to get approved for a mortgage? You go to a mortgage broker. And I will do this for a mortgage broker. Well, the mortgage broker says, hey, sellers, you have this debt right over here. You got $428,000 of debt in your name. That debt over here, the 428,000, needs to be gone. Like, you guys don't make enough money to support both of these loans. Their PITI is at $3,200 a month. He's like, dude, John, you don't make enough money to pay $3,200 a month over here and also come over here and pay whatever your payment's going to be over here. You just don't make enough money for that. I'd love to give you the loan, but you don't make enough money for it. So we already have a signed contract to buy it, subject to buy it, purchase it subject to the existing loan. So I already have a contract signed with the sellers to buy it subject to. But they need the $428,000 off of their name. So what do? This is where it gets really cool. Is when you can buy it, you can keep the loan in someone else's name, and you can also get them approved for a new loan. Like this is the cool part. And if you have any questions up to now, feel free to ask them.
Cool, Rex. We do have a couple.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the questions, want to frame the problem again. So we have in this scenario, someone, bought a house around a year ago. They were excited. They probably have some sort of job that allowed them to do that. But now maybe they either switch jobs or a job's telling them you have to move. So they now go under contract for a new house and sell their house simultaneously. But they don't have enough equity where they can't lower their price. So it's staying on the market, but they cannot drop that price down. So that's when the wholesaler comes in, talks to the agent in between, contacts you as a possible solution to do subject to. And there is a time crunch because of this aspect of needing to move within a certain time frame or being under contract for another house. Do I have the problem framed correctly?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Excellent. So then when it comes to the commissions, could you go over that one more time? So the agent gets 5K, wholesaler 5K, and then what do you get as well?
So I'm buying the property. So I am the buyer. Let's make this a little bigger here. And so I do not wholesale. So I am the buyer. And I know I said earlier that I told the wholesaler I want to be all in at the 15,000, and you're probably thinking, where does the other 5,000? Where's the other 5,000 at? You said 15,000. Agents getting 5, wholesalers getting 5. Where's the other 5 at? So I paid closing cost. So between closing cost and a transaction coordinator who coordinates the transaction is, let's see where my thing is here. We have another 5,000. So we will, and we can get into the numbers when I can pull the other sheet up once we go through this, and we can kind of see the breakdown of the numbers first to see what do I get out of it besides a cash flowing property. This is going to be closing cost. Closing cost is 5,000. So therefore it gets me in at my total of 15,000. Agent says, you know what? I don't have to have necessarily a percentage of commission. I just need to get this property off my books. I need to help the sellers out. Sellers are needing to go buy their new house they're already under contract for. Like, if I can make 5,000 off, otherwise I'm not going to make anything off of this. If I don't sell this, I'm not going to make anything off of it. And at least I'll make $5,000 off of it. And I'll go make a commission over here on their new house. that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense why the agent would want to drop their interest rate. So, yeah, I think you were going to segue now to, I guess, like the meat of the deal. So, like the end result. Would
Yeah.
love for you to walk through that now.
Yeah. As far as how we got that off of their debt to income. So let's go. Let's see here. Um,
Maybe if we could also use a different color, maybe
oh yeah.
blue or something.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna erase just a little bit of this because I can't scroll my screen with this thing here. So let's see here. All right. So now how do we get this loan off of their debt to income? So is what we do. This mortgage broker says, hey, we need to, you guys really don't have enough income to make this $3,200 payment and the payment on your new house over here at the same time. So this loan needs to be gone. So is what we do. We are already under contract to buy. We have a closing date. Is what we do. We go over here and we put in a lease. So we sign a lease with John over here. We sign a lease for $4,200 a month for 12 months. And why do we sign a lease for $4,200 a month for 12 months? We're already under contract to buy the house. So the reason is we needed 4,200, which then cancels out. This property now becomes an income producing property for John because his payment is 3,200 a month. We signed a lease at 4,200 a month. So on paper, he's now making $1,000 a month off of this property. That's pretty great. That's pretty good. So John now takes this lease that we have with him and he goes over here to the mortgage broker and says, hey, mortgage broker, you told me I need to get this debt off of my name and this payment off of my name in order to get qualified for this new house over here. He said, yes. Well, what about this? I got a 12-month lease in place for $4,200 a month. It's now a cash flowing property. And so many people do this in traditional sales. A lot of people will go buy a house. They will live in it for 2 years, 3 years. But they're having more kids. They want a little bit bigger house and a little newer neighborhood. So therefore they say, you know what? We want to go buy a new house. But at the same time, I don't really want to get rid of the house we're at. We really like this house. It would make a great rental house. And I just don't really want to get rid of it. So is what they do. They'll go get another house under contract. And they will take the house that they're living in. They will find someone to go lease it. Depending on the type of loan will depend. Get $4,200 a month or $3,200 a month. Different types of loans. There has to be a different percentage there. They will go find someone to lease it to then get it off their debt to income if they don't make enough to support both loans at the same time. They will take the lease, the 12-month lease that they have here over here, and they'll take it to their mortgage broker. So this happens in the traditional settings all the time, and a lot of people don't really realize it. But in this setting, John has this lease in place that now he can take over here to the mortgage broker and say, hey, mortgage broker, this is what I got for a lease. What does it look like? And mortgage broker's like, well, now it's an income producing property. So yeah, I can for sure get you approved for this mortgage. So they get approved for this mortgage over here on their new house Because we have a lease in place. And how do we have a lease? And why do we sign a lease when we already under contract? We signed the lease to get it off their debt to income so they could buy a new property. So on the 20th, they go over here and they close on this new house. They go to title, sign, send the money, get the loan, all approved, and close on it. While at the same time, they still have these mortgages over here, the $428,000 in their name, and they still own this house. This house over here, they still own it. They close on a Friday. They get moved on a Friday, and where we already have a contract in place over here on this house, we're going to close over here on the 24th. This is when we're going to close. And you're like, well, why you're closing on it? What if they didn't sell that place to you? Because you already signed a lease with them to rent it for $4,200 a month for 12 months. Like, why wouldn't they back out of the contract? They don't want to keep the house. They want the house gone. They don't want to deal with the rental house. That's why they're selling it, because they don't want to deal with the rental house. So they closed over here on their new house the 20th on a Friday, and on Tuesday we come over here and close on this house. In this lease that we signed in place, we can purchase the property at any time because we already have this lease. Will go void. Lease over here will go void when we purchase the property because we are already under contract with this property through the agent to the sellers. Any questions on that so far?
This is excellent. And as questions come in, so Rex, you were able to have the solution of getting the debt written off basically for the mortgage broker so they could close on the house, and then you take it over a couple days later. So initially, if this is someone's first time looking at a creative deal, they may think like, wow, it's a lot of moving parts. Did you know how to solve every single moving part as it came ahead of time, or was this something that you learned as you went along?
So I knew the gist of this prior. I have a great friend who's a mortgage broker. So it's a who not how thing. This mortgage broker over here is actually a good friend of mine. This mortgage broker knows how to get these off. This mortgage broker's done probably 200 of these by now. So this mortgage broker knew exactly what we needed to get this off, their debt to income. He knew we needed a lease. He knew. So I was actually working closely with this mortgage broker. The sellers were working closely with this mortgage broker. The sellers knew that me and this mortgage broker had a relationship. The sellers knew that by utilizing the relationships that I have, they could get into this brand new house over here that they wanted, because they needed to be they needed to be over in the new part of town, closer to their work.
Got it. So essentially, because you had a network, you didn't have to know every single step ahead of time. You essentially knew like the gist of different concepts. And I want to point that out, that having a team in place, whether that be a wholesaler, like people that you know, mortgage brokers, people that you network with at these real estate meetups that are local, can really help as you start to uncover like problems or try to problem solve some of these situations, to be able to lean on them as well. So
Yes.
we did have a question earlier from Christina. Have you had a lot of lenders calling loans on a sub-2 deal, or is that something that you've considered as well?
So it is a risk. And that is something I do communicate very clearly with the sellers. I have not had any called due yet. I have not had any called due. I know people who have had them called due and have got it worked around. That is something I communicate well with the sellers. I said, this is a risk. This could happen. If this does happen, these are the steps we will take to fix it. And so far, I have not had it called due, but it is a risk, and it is a risk that you need to communicate to a seller in the event that you are buying one.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely good to highlight that, the options here, there's a reason why this is a little more complicated and risky than, maybe your common transaction. It's a situation that doesn't work traditionally. Maybe only 3% of all transactions fall into this type of bucket. But because of the complexity of it, there are extra steps that need to be taken. So, Rex, at that stage of when you're now needing to rent out that property that you just took over, how was that process? Is it currently rented out or still on market?
Yeah. So I actually had a signed lease in place with this house here before we ever closed. So I had it 2 days after we closed. We furnished this house. Not gonna work probably. Um, we furnished this house, and so 3 days. We closed on the 24th, and the 27th or 28th, we had a tenant moving in. We already had a signed lease in place before we ever closed. That way, it cuts down my holding time. It cuts down my holding cost because every day I have $100, over $100 a day in holding cost on this property, because this is what the PITI is that we took over. So it is currently rented right now.
Awesome. Perfect. So as we get maybe some last rolling questions in, since we're coming up to time, would love for you to walk a little bit through that document that you initially had, just so we
Yeah,
can
for
see
sure.
some of the numbers tangibly.
Perfect. Let me exit out of this if I can here.
Yeah, you get to save this masterpiece.
Let me go to. Can you guys see this here?
Yeah, and if you could just zoom in maybe 2 steps. Yeah.
Let's see here. All right. Too far. Oh, there we go. There, my mouse is working now. All right. So as you'll see on this, so this is actually the closing statement. I don't, sadly. So as you can see, the left-hand side over here, you got remaining balance first is the first loan at $400,112. Then you have remaining balance. That is the second loan, $427,787. So that is what property dollars here is what the whole. So on this property, a lot of my creative deals, all of my creative deals, I have a private money lender who comes in and follow my entry fee, and their money gets secured against the property, and they make just a monthly interest check for 24-month term that we put it in there for. So on this one, you're going to see over here on the left-hand side, new loans. And you're like, well, you're taking over the loan payments on the existing property. Why do you need a new loan? The new loan is what a lender brought in. So a private lender brought in $45,000. Well, why did they bring in your closing? You told the wholesaler you wanted to only be in at $15,000. Why did they need to bring $45,000? It's an amazing question. As we'll go down, you'll see all these other miscellaneous charges, as you get through closing and stuff. So for me, my private money lender will bring in enough money to pay all the fees, everything, commissions, wholesalers, whatever there is. They'll bring in enough for furnishings to furnish the entire house. They'll bring in enough for holding costs because I'm going to plan for vacancies between the time I buy it to the time I rent it out. I'm going to try for not, but I'm going to plan for it. And then they're going to bring in enough money for me to get a check too, because I want to get paid to buy the house as well. Like that's the greatest thing ever, to be able to get paid. So the wholesale or the private lender brought in $45,000 and it covered all of these costs. Balance due from buyer, you're going to see over here on the bottom of the right-hand side, if you can see that. So $40,000 is what I got back from title. Like what? You just went and bought a property? You didn't use a bank? You've never had a bank loan. You didn't use any of your credit. You bought this property that you're going to now put a tenant in and rent out, and you got a check for $40,000 back from title? Like that's crazy, right? Well, this $40,000 is going to cover for a holding cost. It's going to cover I pay my TCs, an attorney that I have to draft up some extra documents. It's going to cover the holding cost, and I'm going to get a check from it. So I'm going to essentially get paid to buy this house.
Love it. Getting paid to buy a house with that, little to no money down is always one of the things that we strive for. So with that, Rex, I think we don't have any other questions right now. So I'm going to kind of share this last screen here. And just as a refresher for folks, so we have Rex's information here. If you want to follow more, which I highly encourage you to, Rex is putting out shorts and videos like this on how to actually walk through deal analysis. As well, our next live stream for next week will be Sub2 deal analysis with Jeff and Ken from Sub2 Empire. And we do have one more question. We'll sneak it in. So let me stop sharing here. And Christina has asked, is there a benefit to doing a Sub2 besides potential appreciation versus doing, say, a rental arbitrage?
Great question. Owning a house is more risk, I guess you would say. You have to keep the house up. You have to keep tenants in it. You have to keep the mortgage paid. But if you do a rental arbitrage, you also have to pay the rent as well. So by owning the house, by buying it Sub2, I get to help out a seller who needs help, which is awesome to be able to help those out. I get to help out someone who has extra money that wants to lend it and make a great return. Shucks, if someone wants to make it, who gets paid a 10% return, a lot of times like stock market, I can pay a great return for a portion of it. Then get to provide a nice, fully furnished house for a client of mine. I get loan pay down, and over time, I get appreciation. I get tax benefits. And I'd say most importantly, I get a story. I get yet another story, which then helps me to buy even more properties.
Excellent. Being able to help people solve their problems, appreciation, and also help with taxes too. So Rex, with that, thank you so much for your time today. Anything else you'd like to leave everyone with? Any information or tips?
I just want to say thank you so much to you. Thank you for dealing with my technical errors. Next time we'll have it together a little better. But thank you so much. I love the stuff that you're doing. Super amazing. Amazing. Love that. If someone has specific questions, feel free to reach out to me. I love to answer questions. So thank you so much, Ariel.